Yes, everybody, welcome back to Flat Cap Euro Talk, and we are going to be announcing and breaking down the Richarlison signing here, everybody. We are going to break down exactly what Richarlison will bring to Spurs. Let me just quickly, though, just give you kind of the here we go kind of tweets from Fabrizio Romano. He did say Chelsea made an attempt to hijack the Richarlison deal before agreement between Everton and Tottenham in place since this morning for £60 million. Spurs have had full agreement with Everton and Richarlison on personal terms, just waiting for the medical in Brazil and the player's signature. He also has put, an image of Richarlison and, a cropped kit, edited out saying Tottenham have signed Richarlison on a permanent deal. Here we go. First part of the paperwork have now been signed with Everton after full agreement on personal terms. Fee will be around £50 million guaranteed plus add-ons. Richarlison is on his way for medical tests in Brazil. Done deal. There you go, everybody. Fabrizio has given us the here we go, but let's break down exactly what Richarlison will bring to Tottenham Hotspur. Born in Nova Venezia, Espirito Santo, Brazil, everybody. He's 25 years old, and he's actually just recently turned 25 and born on May 10th. Height is actually 6 feet inches. I think he's a bit taller than that, if I'll be honest. He can play as a striker. He can play as a left winger, as we know. His youth career was over with America Mineiro, and then a reported fee is of around 60 million euros, maybe 60 million pounds. It's hard to make real clear because Fabrizio said 50 million pounds, then he said 60 million pounds. I would probably maybe say around 60 million euros is maybe a good guess, but I could be wrong. But it is a hefty fee, everybody, and we will break down later whether Richarlison is worth that kind of fee. But let's kind of talk a bit about the stats. And what I think is really interesting about Richarlison's stats, everybody, is that he played for such a such an awful Rafa Benitez and Frank Lampard team that, if you were to compare him to the likes of a Gabriel Jesus, who played for one of the best attacking teams in Europe and one of the teams that creates probably by far the most chances in Europe, Gabriel Jesus' stats are going to look incredible. And then, Richarlison, who barely gets any of the ball, barely has, any good teammates around him, doesn't really have very smart managers, to help with attacking player patterns. His stats are going to look really poor. So always going to need context when it comes to these stats. And I'm not too concerned by how poor they look, but we still have to look at them. That's what we do here on this channel. Shots on target, he's actually quite poor at actually maybe, keeping shots on target. The conversion rate isn't always great. That kind of reflects in the expected goals because he scored 10 at the end of the season, but was actually expected to score 10.2, which means that he kind of underperformed XG. You don't really want that, I must say, as a forward. Shots total, though, he has around 2.5 per 90. And as you know, everybody, with the percentiles, the closer to 100 you are, the better you are. So the fact that he's kind of, hovering a lot, below, the 50th percentile sort of suggests that, in some areas he could improve, but also it just has heavy influence with the fact that when you play for a Rafa Benitez and Frank Lampard team, you're not going to get many chances. You don't really have really good people, feeding you the ball and giving you good opportunities. And so really you're just going to struggle in these sort of areas. Aerials won, he's actually decent, but then he actually has a lot of aerials lost. And I think that's just simply because he has the ball, just kind of launched at him, hopelessly so many times and just praying that he can hold it up. So I think that's, maybe why his aerial win percentage as well as his aerials lost, are so high. But on top of that, though, I feel like actually Richarlison is pretty decent in the air, if you ask me. I've seen him score some spectacular goals with his head. So again, I don't really know if those stats really reflect, what I've actually seen with my own eyes with the player. Passes completed per 90. This is kind of what we're getting into with like how little Richarlison has the ball. And when you kind of take that, into context, how little he has the ball, then you have to realize like how few opportunities he really gets to do anything with the ball. So if you don't get the ball as much as Bernardo Silva, Gabriel Jesus, or whatever in a Man City, you get so many opportunities to make chances. You get so many opportunities to do things to create for your teammates. Richarlison only gets like 12 point, basically 13 passes completed a game. With those 13 passes completed a game, one of those is going to have to be a crucial pass that leads to a goal. He just doesn't get many opportunities. He gets 20 passes attempted, which still isn't that high. And again, in the 30th percentile there. So he doesn't even get to attempt as many passes as most forwards in the Premier League. Key passes, which is a pass that leads directly to a shot on goal. He could definitely improve, I think, in that metric. But again, like he doesn't get many opportunities, to pass it to a teammate for a direct shot on goal. Passes into the penalty area certainly could do better there, though. Through balls, he's actually quite decent. And if you do check out his highlight packages, you can see some very clever through balls from the guy. Passes made under pressure, not a big surprise. He does quite well there, mostly because when they do kind of ping it into him, he is going to be absolutely, just thrown apart, like pulling kits and whatnot. They're going to be all over him when they get the ball into him. So that doesn't, surprise me that passes made under pressure are quite high. And then passes blocked. Also, when you think about it, right, if you're constantly hitting into Richarlison's feet and he's just being swarmed, pulled, dragged in every which direction, a lot of his passes are then going to be blocked. I know I'm probably making a lot of excuses for Richarlison's stats, but if you did watch Everton this year, everybody, I think you can understand where I'm coming from, where there is a huge asterisk on these stats because Everton were so shocking this season. And another maybe big point that needs to be made here, everybody, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin did not help out Richarlison at all this season. Of course, he was injured for a huge amount of time. Even when he did come back, I'll be honest, I don't know if he really looked that great or he wasn't, the same Dominic Calvert-Lewin as maybe we knew before. So you have to take that, also in mind where Richarlison just didn't have very much help. I know he had an Anthony Gordon, there, but again, he didn't have his main striker in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Czech Doucouré was kind of in and out, with injuries as well. It just was kind of it was a tough season, I think, for Richarlison in terms of having support around him, you could say. If we're going to look at sort of his creative stats, these are kind of, areas where, he's creating with, his own, sort of kind of movements. It's not like relying on teammates or anything. This is stuff that, stats that sort of reflect anything that he creates, himself, if that makes any sense. So shot creating actions, he's, pretty low there again. But when I think about it again, right, if he only has so many opportunities to even have the ball, the shot creating actions are going to be very high. Fouls drawn, though, leading to a shot. This is something a lot of people have spoken about, is that he does get free kicks and wins penalties for you. And that is going to be a huge thing, especially if we have Sonny, who's been burying the free kicks recently. He's maybe looking like a set piece specialist at this stage. We will have a lot more opportunities from free kicks as well as set pieces from those Richarlison fouls. And on top of that, too, I think we just signed, a set piece specialist. Antonio Conte, or at least is trying to sign a set piece specialist. So having someone like Richarlison who wins you a lot of free kicks is a great signing. Players dribble pass, he's pretty high there, in the top 25th percentile. Carries into the penalty area, he's doing pretty well there. That is a stat that's Sonny, by the way, everybody dominates in, is carries into the penalty area. It's a great stat to reflect how direct, someone is when they receive the ball. Progressive carries actually surprisingly higher than I thought, to be fair, considering, again, like the team that Everton do play. Or touches in the defensive third. This again, reflects the Rafa Benitez and Frank Lampard team. I mean, he's a striker slash, left winger. He has in the top 3 percentile of touches in his own defensive third. That shows that his team is sitting deep. Every man is behind the ball. Not fun kind of stuff. And I do feel quite bad for Richarlison that he had to endure that. Dispossessed, though, he is dispossessed quite often, and again, that probably just has to do with not having a lot of support around him. But he does have a loose touch, I would say, from time to time. Finally, looking into sort of his defensive stats, when you do look at his defensive stats, he's practically one of the hardest working forwards in all of the Premier League, as well as even Europe, to a degree. Even if you were to compare him to other wingers in the Premier League, his defensive stats are incredible. Like, you can see how hard this guy works when it comes to those areas, especially pressures, being able to make blocks, being able to turn over the ball. He's been exceptional in that regard. So Richarlison, you are getting one of the hardest working, forwards in the Premier League, and that is for sure. But I did kind of want to bring up maybe some talking points that probably you guys can answer in the comments, as well as, maybe, I don't know, disagree with me or agree with me what I have here. But I did want to maybe talk about Richarlison's attitude, whether it's good or bad. In my eyes, I think it's actually, the right type of attitude that we need in this team. He's one of those players that I feel like if he misses 4 chances in a row, he doesn't really get his ego, sort of shattered, or he doesn't really have his confidence really blown, by, missing chances or anything. He seems to be a very confident sort of player. He's very confident in his ability. And I'm actually glad that we're bringing in a guy like that whose, ego or, his confidence isn't as fragile as maybe other players, because we have brought in players in the past that you do feel like once, they get a bit out of form, it's really hard for them to get back into form. And they often even say like, oh, I need to run a games, to get my confidence back. I feel like Richarlison isn't really one of those players. You could just give him 20 minutes and he'll prove you wrong, sort of guy. He's a very hungry player. And so what we've been told is that he actually has an exceptional attitude off the pitch. He's an extremely generous guy. I think he's actually quite philanthropic. He actually as well, comes from, I think, what we know, very humble beginnings. And apparently he's actually a top man outside of the football pitch. On the football pitch, he's a completely different story. Nasty, has a ton of housery, as we know. And as well, he's one of the most hated Premier League players because he has such a kind of, just annoying sort of like, I don't know, brutal mentality that people just, doesn't rub people the right way. I might say, and I actually am all for it. I think Spurs need more of these kind of mean guys, less of these sort of kind of like soft tag, sort of personalities that we've had at the club. And to be fair, it's the right type of cultural change bringing in someone like him. Would he sulk on the bench? I really doubt it because honestly, I think he's going to get plenty of football. As we know, we're going to be in two domestic cup competitions, which we probably want to win one of those because it is maybe a better chance to win those than the other ones. Champions League, and on top of that, Premier League games week in, week out. This guy is going to play plenty of football. If he sulks on the bench, I just don't see it happening. I just think even when, he's going to be ready to go when Conte, snaps the finger and asks him to come on, he probably doesn't even need to change or anything. He'll be ready to go and ready to prove something. So I really don't expect him to be sulking on the bench. And he also doesn't really have anything worries about his World Cup spot because over in Brazil, I think he's kind of well liked, especially by the national team manager there. So I don't think there should be any worries about him, missing out on a Brazil spot either. Is he worth 60 million pounds? That is maybe a big question mark. In my eyes, you have to look at the fact that the transfer market, when it comes to strikers, has become so inflated. When you look at the likes of Darwin Nunez, you look at the likes of what Lautaro Martinez is being valued at, Vlahovic, went for a huge fee. Still, Osimhen is being valued at ridiculous fees. You kind of have to look at the fact that it looks like strikers these days are a lot more expensive than they used to be. That might have to do with the fact that I don't think there are as many good out and out number nines as maybe there used to be. And also just the way that teams play, you're asking a lot more of the striker. They can't just be kind of tapping merchants. I think they need to be a lot more than that, in order to play for the top teams, across Europe. And so that's probably why strikers are going for so much these days. There's not very many of them, which, makes them more expensive. And, there really aren't that many quality ones to really pick from. So they're just going to be more expensive, whichever ones, are available to you. So I feel like the 60 million pound price tag is more explained by the fact that it's one of Everton's best players. And he is also kind of one of the only real number nines or strikers out there that you kind of know is sort of proven maybe to a degree. Significance of the signing, I think the significance of the signing is that for once Spurs have finally added a Premier League proven player into this team. I don't remember the last time we really signed, like someone from another Premier League club that was their best player. I guess we just did that with Basuma, but this is sort of like kind of part of that change that we've been seeing this summer in sort of the transfers. We're buying the best players from other clubs in the Premier League. We're signing players that, really will compete for the first team, like players that will make, Højbjerg, Kane, Son, Kulusevski look over their shoulder. These are nice sort of kind of signings to be making. And I think it's a huge significant signing because normally we wouldn't sign a player like this to challenge for the front team. And now we have it. So it's definitely showing the significance of the sort of kind of transfer policy maybe changing, the transfer attitudes changing. And I think a lot of the bad habits, that we used to have in the transfer market as Spurs have sort of changed as well. But everybody, those are my thoughts on the Richarlison signing. Let me know what you think of this signing in the comments down below. Hit that like button on your way out. Please hit that, or please as well, give me your comments on anything you feel like I might have missed on Richarlison or things you might have disagreed with as well. Feel free to drop a super thanks if you feel like supporting the channel. But as always, everybody, come on, you Spurs, and I will be seeing you.